Hey guys, welcome back to Light Science Studios, and today it's part 2 of our Smove mobile review. Welcome back guys, and thank you for joining me today. After my initial review of the Smove mobile, there were some things I realized that I left out and some other things that I learned since then that I want to elaborate on now, primarily having to do with the app and some of the settings that you can find in there. So let's get started. Alright, so today we are going to be diving deeper into the app itself. We're going to go ahead and put the phone into the Smove mobile and get it set up. And turn it on. There we go. And then let's go ahead and pull up the app. Okay, so number one thing that I didn't mention about the app, which is another thing that I don't like about it, and one of the main reasons why I don't use it, is that the frame rates in which you can record are somewhat limited. Specifically, it doesn't have 4K recording at 24 frames per second. You can do 30 frames per second at both 720, 1080, and 4K. And then you can do 60 frames per second at 4K, as well as 60 frames per second at 1080p and 720. So you have 30 and 60 frames per second at all resolutions, 720, 1080, and 4K, but there's no 24. And I don't understand why that is when the camera app itself in the phone has 24 frames per second capability. So that is one of the main reasons why I don't use the app, because I typically record at 24 frames per second. You also have the super slow-mo options of recording at 120 frames per second at 1080p and 240 frames per second at 720 as well as 1080p. I don't know why they don't include a 120 frames per second at 720. Not that you'd want to record at 720 anyway, but the fact that they do 240 at 720 but not 120 doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Okay, so if you go into the Smove mobile app and you click on the little 3 lines on the left side in the bottom left corner, it'll pull up your settings menu. From there you can click on Gimbal settings, and in there you'll find a menu called Joystick settings. In Joystick settings you'll be able to set the pan and tilt speeds from the joystick control. Now, slow is fairly slow, and here's an example of what that looks like. As you can see, it is extremely slow. Almost painfully slow. Going up, going down. Okay, enough of that. Now, going fast, it looks a little bit something like this. If we move it all the way to the right, and here's the thing that was a little confusing to me. I tried changing these settings multiple times, and each time I would see no difference. I would try it again and it would still be slow. And every time I'd go back into the joystick settings, it would still be set to slow. Finally, I realized and noticed a little disc icon in the top right corner. And in fact, that is the button you need to push in order to make sure these parameters are saved. So we're gonna set our panning to fast, we're gonna set our tilting to fast, and then we're gonna hit that little disc icon to save those parameters. Now you'll see the difference. When I go left and right is significant, moves much quicker, same with up and down. You also have the options to reverse the pan and reverse the tilt if you so desired. Below that you see things like auto rotation mode rate. This I believe, and again I haven't messed around too much with this, but this is where you set how quickly it will go through a certain auto rotation, for instance for time lapses. So when you set the path you want the gimbal to take for a time lapse, this is where you can set the speed at which it goes over that path. And then at the very bottom of the parameter menu, you'll see the Restore Device Defaults, in case you want to restore it to factory settings. Now, to be honest with you guys, I have not yet figured out what the motor dynamics do. And I'll tell you, the instruction manual hasn't been of any help with that. When you go into motor dynamics, you'll see panning, rolling, and tilting, and you'll see low, middle, and high. Now, I've set it to all low, and I've saved it, and this is pretty much what you get when you set it to low. And I'm looking at like the speed at which it tilts and turns, and of course the joystick controls are controlled by the joystick settings, so that's not doing anything there. So I'm just looking at what it's doing when I'm actually moving the gimbal up, down, left, right, and then I change it to the high setting. We'll go high on pan, high on roll, high on tilt, save that, and this is what it looks like. And I haven't noticed any difference. So to be honest, I don't know what the motor parameters are meant for or how they work. So I'm sorry I can't be of any help there. Moving on though, last night I briefly touched on the time-lapse mode and how you can set it to do certain moves. I want to show you what I was talking about where the motors fight me when I try to set them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the mode button in the middle 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll beep once. Now we set it to where we want it to start. So I'll turn it this way. Now this motor doesn't seem to fight me, this pan motor. So I can turn that, start it there. It's this one that when I try to rotate it, it really, right there, it'll kind of fidget and try to fight me. It's not doing it as much now. But sometimes, occasionally, it'll just freak out and the whole phone will start turning over. So, like right there a bit. So I set it there and then I push the button again. That set the starting point. Then I can set the end point, going over, going down. Right there, it just does what it wants, and I'm trying to turn it down. And there it goes, it just starts freaking out on me. So I don't know why it does that. All I'm doing is changing the tilt parameter, and it's just freaking out on me. I don't know why it does that. But you can set it, and once you do get it set, I'll show you. Right now I have it set in the gimbal settings under the auto rotation mode rate. I have the panning speed set to 9 seconds and the tilting speed set to 9 seconds, so very fast. Obviously you wouldn't do it this fast if you were doing a time lapse, but this will show you what it does. So I'm going to hit this 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to set it to the starting point. We'll start there, and we'll start there. And we'll hit it once, and then we'll set our ending point, and we'll turn it this way, and we will turn it downwards. Oh, carefully, we'll turn it. See, it keeps biting me there. Anyway, we'll stop it there. We hit it again, and you'll notice it will go to the start, and then start moving through it to the end. I did not tell it to do that. I don't know what it's doing right now. It's like flipping over. So you can see what I mean when in the last video I said that my results varied, because it kind of just does whatever it wants. I don't know why, and it's still doing whatever it wants right now and just flipping over. And anyway, I think that speaks for itself. Now, there's another mode I didn't talk about. In standard mode, you can rotate to turn the pan, and when you go down or up, the phone's going to stay pointed at your subject. It's going to stay pointed forward, okay? So this is great for walking around and vlogging if you're just wanting to keep the camera steady on your face, because any up and down motion or forward and back that you accidentally do, it's going to still stay focused on your face. In the manual, they call this mode, they call it pan mode. So they call this pan mode. Now, if you double click the mode button, it actually changes to what they call follow mode. So here, we can of course go left and right like before, but when we go up, it'll actually point up, and when we go down, it'll actually point down. So you can actually follow something through space in 3 dimensions. In this mode, you can still hold the trigger to lock the camera, and it will stay where it is, just like in pan mode, but that's convenient when you're wanting to look around a space up and down as opposed to having it just centered on one subject. The other thing about having it in follow mode is when you're in that mode, you can actually use the joystick to control the roll when you're in this flashlight type mode. Now, it doesn't go all the way around like the Ronin does or some of the other newer phone gimbals do, but you do get a little bit of rotation here to there. So that's what you can do when it's in follow mode as opposed to being in the pan mode, in which using the joystick actually does control the pan when it's in this orientation. To get back into pan mode, you can just hit the mode button once, or you can also double tap the trigger to return it to center. One feature I do appreciate that the app has is the ability to follow a face. And so if you click on the left-hand side, it'll come up with face follow or object follow. And both of those have their purposes and can come in handy. Now you'll see a bunch of manual settings along the bottom of the app. The left one with the WT stands for wide and telephoto. That's your zoom. Your MF is manual focus. Your ISO, of course, is your ISO. Your WB is your white balance, and your EXP is your exposure. So when any one of those is selected, you can control and change them through use of the little zoom tab here on the side of the gimbal. By going forward and back, you'll either change your white balance, you'll change your exposure, whatever you selected on the bottom of the app there. Honestly, again, it's one of those things I never really bothered using because I just let the camera do it automatically. Well guys, I think that covers about everything else that I've learned or forgot to mention in the first video. And I want to thank those of you who left comments in the last video, sharing your experiences and letting me know about some of these features so I could explore them more for myself. Please leave more comments below if you have any other questions or to let me know how your experience with your Smove mobile has gone. Alright guys, thanks for being here. We will catch you next time. See ya.